Hi guys, long time no see. I've been away from KDP and YouTube for a while, but I thought I'd come back now, and what better way to ease myself into making videos and getting back into KDP than talking about the recent change in the royalty levels. So if you haven't heard, from June the 10th this year, there was a slight change in the threshold for royalty payments, and that threshold was dependent on book pricing. In the US, for example, if your book is priced $9.99 and above, you'd still get your 60%. If it's just 1 cent below that, at $9.98, you drop down to 50%. But what does that actually mean in real terms? Well, I'll try and show you. So this here is a screenshot from the help page, which I will link below, and it tells you what it was like before June the 10th. So for a 300-page book, black and white, with a list price of $8, this is what you could expect to happen. It would cost $4.60 to print. The royalty rate was 60%. So minimum list fee worked out with this equation, very important. The minimum list would be $7.67, and from that your estimated royalties would be 33 cents. Now you might think, okay, so $8, I'd be in the 50% bracket now. So losing 10% of your royalties, you might just look at this simply and say, oh, well, 33 cents, I'd lose 10% of that, I'd lose 3.3 cents-ish. But that's not the case. The biggest important thing here to look at is the printing cost divided by the royalty rate. That's what sets up the minimum list price. And you need to get that minimum list price before you are entitled to any royalties. So after June the 10th, this is what happens. The printing cost is still $4.60, but because it's at $8 rather than $9.99, you only get 50% royalties, and that figure there, $4.60 divided by 50%, so you're basically dividing it by 0.5 or doubling it, gives you a minimum list price of $9.20. And as you can see, $9.20, you wouldn't get any royalties. So previously, your minimum list price was $7.67, you'd get 33 cents. Now you've got to add $1.13 to the price, and you still won't make a penny. So that brings us to what you can do about it. You need to be aware, basically. If you're anything like me, you'll have put books on KDP 5 years ago and not changed the price since. With the recent increase in prices that have happened over the last couple of years, your royalties will have been eaten away anyway. There were a couple of books that I made that weren't making anything. So earlier this year, I went and put them up. I'll have to do that again. But you need to be more aware of what you're charging and what royalties you can expect from a book. And that's where the calculator comes in. Amazon provides this calculator for you to use, and it's the best tool. Again, I'll link to this in the description below, but it's easy to find. Just Google Amazon KDP calculator. So this is it. You add whatever you need to do. Because it's June, I'm making my academic planners. So let's just do that. Normally they're 8.5 by 11, and they are 135 pages because there's a lot of stuff in them. And let's price this at $9.98. So at $9.98, I am under the $9.99 minimum. So I get the 50% royalty rate. The minimum list price, remember, is the printing costs divided by the royalty rate. So basically 50%, you're going to double your printing costs. So the minimum price is $6.60-ish, $6.59. So out of that, I'll get $1.70. If I put it up by 1 cent, this is the big difference it makes. For 1 cent extra, I get an extra $1 per book. Now, that's an extreme example. You're not going to price your book at $9.98. You're going to go for $9.99. Now, you'll also notice that here, just because I'm at the threshold for the US, you'll notice that I'm not hitting it in the UK. It's got to be $7.99 for the UK price to be at the 60% margin. So normally, and again this is me being lazy, I would probably price the book in the US at $9.99, but I'd let the KDP upload process convert it into the relevant currency. I might change this to a 7.49. So in my mind, I'm making an extra there's an extra 20 odd pence put on the price of the book, which will convert to a slightly raised royalty estimate. But I would still be at the 50% mark. So what I'll have to do, and I'm talking to me now as well as you, go through and price up each individual book so it's at the threshold, if that's what I want to do. So I'd price the US up at $9.99. I'd have to price the UK up at $7.99. Amazon $9.99, whatever that is, European. So I've got to be more aware of the prices I'm charging and the royalties that I would be expected to bring in. And when I'm talking about royalties, there are things you can do that'll increase your royalties anyway. Things like trim size. It didn't used to be the case, but it is now and has been for a while, that the trim size pricing is divided into two. There's one regular and there's one large. 8.5 by 11 is large, so the print cost is more. However, with this being a planner, 8.5 by 11 is nice, but I could do it at 6 by 9, and in fact I have for the last couple of years. And if I was to change it to 6 by 9, still the same page count, still the same list price. Instead of getting $2.70 royalties, I'm now getting $3.37. For all intents and purposes, the book is exactly the same, it's just smaller. You'd have to check, but for my planners, shrinking the book down, it doesn't harm the layout at all. Yes, you get less space to write, but it's fine. So that's good going forward. You know how to price your books up properly, but what about the books that you've already published? Luckily, I haven't published that many, but if you've got thousands and thousands, you can't be bothered to go through the entire back catalogue and find out which books are under the threshold, which books you need to address. Luckily, for the time being anyway, there's this blue box here. You can click this link here and it gives you an Excel sheet of all your affected books. And this is what you get. Now, I'm not bothered about you seeing me book titles because I've showed you how to make them anyway. But this is a list of all the books that are affected by the threshold. Me planners and me appointment books, I'm not bothered about because they're out of date. You know, now they've all finished. It's absolutely fine. But things like my craft paper pads, they're now under, some of them. I'll have to change them. Me journals, my composition notebooks, this timesheet logbook, that's a new book. I made it in February. I priced it quite competitively at, I think it was $8.99. I was making a couple of dollars per book, which was fine. But now the price has gone up. I've gone to the 50% threshold. So this is all a list of books that I need to change. But what you would do is you'd find the BSR, you'd find the number here. I've forgotten what it's called, but you'd find, that's how long I've been. You'd get your identifying number here and just put it into the search by title. ASIN number, that's what it's called. And then you could go in and you could change your prices there. So this is one of the books that was new. I actually charged $7.99 US. But again, I was still making $1.50, $2 royalty on it. Now I'm in the pricing, and as you can see, it tells us there I'm at the 50% rate. And this is the royalty, 96 cents. So if I wanted to, I could just up it by $1, sorry. See what that does. I'm still at the 50%, but it gets us 146. I think, to be honest, and this might just be me, I'd have to go in and check every the competitors. I think $9.99 for that sort of book is a bit much. But put it my pit. I'd compare the competitors, see what people are charging, and see what amounts they're making, and then price your book accordingly. The thing with the UK books and the EU books is that they are there's VAT included on them. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. It's weird. This book has VAT, so even though it's $6.99, it's under the threshold. The actual price is $8.39 because there's VAT there. If I was to up this to $7.99, you'd see the price jump to almost a tenner. So all the information is there. Look for it. Use it how you will. For me personally, for certain books, I don't mind making $1.40 for a book. I've had to raise that by $1. I don't mind making $1.46. I'm not selling enough books where it's really going to impact us massively. But it's always good to know these things and just be aware of your pricing. Like I said, I'm an absolute idiot when it comes to, I nearly swore there, I'm an absolute idiot when it comes to this sort of thing. I price things, forget about it, and that's it. I often price too low just because I think low prices are more appealing, but it's not. I don't shop by lowest price. If I was buying a notebook, unless it's a ridiculously expensive one, if it was designed well and the cover was nice, I wouldn't search by price. I wouldn't buy a lesser one just because it was going to save us a couple of quid. So what does this mean for low content books? I don't know. Don't ask me. We're probably going to see the very, very low priced ones done through KDP. They'll probably just disappear. Although having said that, one of the books that I made that I wasn't getting any royalties for, Amazon was still selling it. I just wasn't getting any money for it. Obviously, Amazon must have been making a little bit from it. Otherwise, what's the point? So I think as time goes by, we'll probably see more and more of the very, very cheap books kicked out the system. And that can only be good news for everyone, surely. Right, so that's it for the first video in a while. Like I say, I've been away for a bit, and I wanted to do an easy video, so I did this. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.